Welcome back to Magic Hour, everyone. I'm your host, Taylor Page.
And I'm Claire. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
So, I feel like at time of recording, but probably for a lot of people through 2025, the energy has been feeling so clunky. It's like the retrogrades are over, but we're navigating this post retrograde shadow for Mercury and Mars and Venus, and it's just been feeling so clunky. And one of the things that's been coming up for me is when I'm in moments where the energy feels clunky, I find one of my energetic protectors to be rumination. And lately, I've been ruminating before I go to bed. And I know I've talked about this on a previous episode where when that happens, it's showing us that our inner child doesn't feel seen or heard in some way. And if we can just journal during the day and check in with them, that can really help the rumination. But last night, I found myself just ruminating, and it wasn't even all bad stuff. Some of it was business ideas and things I wanted to write about and things I had to do. I just felt like it was hard for my body to wind down. And like part of this clunky, heightened energy feels like things are a little bit energetically messy, is the best way I could say. Like nothing is fitting in its neat box the way it's supposed to. So sometimes when you fall into the trap of rumination, it's really easy, which for people who don't know what rumination is, it's when your mind is frantically thinking over everything and attaching stories or labels to it or making sense of things and just replaying things. It's like that kind of flurry activation in the crown chakra. And I found that what helped me is that sometimes when we're in rumination, we can take it as a sign that we aren't doing a good job on our healing journey or that we're moving backwards, or we can have even shame around some of the thoughts that are coming up in our rumination spirals. And last night, what really helped me is I just said this mantra. I said, my ultimate truth is love. Thank you for showing me what needs to be detangled so I can come back to it. And that really helped me with the rumination because it's so easy to believe that those frantic, flurry thoughts are the truth of who we are or even the truth of our energetic experience. But in reality, it's just cords that want to be seen and detangled so we can come back to our ultimate truth, which is always love. And that completely shifted my experience. And I felt really called to talk about it on the pod today, too.
I love that. I want you to text that to me afterwards so I can have it written down for myself. But I have also been feeling that energy. And for me, it's been feeling kind of this frantic, frenetic, unsettled energy and not so much ruminating, but almost feeling so overextended. Like I'm giving so much of myself to everything else. And I can feel like my inner child is just wanting to like sit on the floor and just be like, enough, no more. And so I think for me, it's also been a moment of I have to also give to myself. I have to also take the time to be still with myself. And so I love what you just said because it is so easy to attach to these frantic thoughts or these stress thoughts and feel like you said, this is my experience or this is me. And I think when we can have that separation and know that this is just thoughts that are pouring through my head and I'm not those thoughts, I'm not this frantic feeling. I think that's when we can really be there for ourselves in a moment where things just feel hectic.
Yes, I so agree. And I think with Chiron and Aries right now, it's very easy for us to make our healing journey into a story about the type of person we are. Like, I'm just the type of person who's anxious. I'm just the type of person that ruminates. I'm just the type of person who XYZ. And so I really think instead of letting that be absorbed into our identity, which is 100% the ego, not the truth, seeing where our protectors are coming up, seeing where the imbalances are coming up, seeing where, like in your example, your inner child just wants to like zone out on the floor for a little while or pour into her own cup, taking all of that as information, but not letting it turn into a story about our identity or who we really are. And I just want to repeat what I said before. My ultimate truth is love. Thank you for showing me what needs to be detangled so I can get back to it. So I think whenever these protectors are coming up and that frantic energy, like you were saying, is coming up, it's showing where the energetic jigsaw puzzle of our life needs to be rearranged for our needs to be met so we can come back to the truth, which is always love. That reminds me of a pattern that I've been seeing in a lot of my readings. And when I see patterns back to back to back in my readings, I know I'm meant to talk about them because it's a bigger collective theme. And right now, I see so many people who are in this space where they know that professionally what they're doing is not working for them. And they have also dreams of what they want to be doing. But then there is this overwhelm and this energy that's zapping them from moving forward. And basically, the feeling is when I tune into it, it's like trying the same energetic strategy to move forward that hasn't been working. What isn't working right now was created by this energetic strategy, and you can't fix the problem by that same energetic strategy. So it feels like right now is a moment where a lot of people need more empty space, which is so interesting that my word for 2025 was spaciousness, because I feel like that's what so many people need as I'm feeling into them in my readings right now, where it's like, I just want to know what the next thing is so I can put all of myself into it. But I actually feel like for a lot of us in these creative spaces and who don't feel aligned in a certain area of life, but don't know what's coming next, the first step is actually creating the spaciousness and filling up our cup enough that we can create what's next. We can't pour from an empty cup. And I feel like the energy right now is really hammering that lesson home.
Wow. I mean, we've talked about this before on the pod, but sometimes you say exactly what I'm going through, like, especially in the sitting with spirit moment. That couldn't be more well put of the way I feel in this moment. So drained, so aware that I'm not filling my own cup, and knowing that I need to make a shift because this isn't working, and feeling totally overwhelmed with how to even do that. And I was literally just suggested to create space and find a way to create more space for myself. So thank you for reiterating that. And, I think sometimes that can feel scary too, because a lot of us are in survival mode and trying to make ends meet and make all the pieces of our lives fit together. We have so much responsibility in this society of the things that we're being asked to do and feel we need to do. And especially, I think, when you're an entrepreneur or in a creative endeavor, because you also have to create space for that endeavor on top of all of your responsibilities. And so I think sometimes it can feel impossible to create this space, but figuring out what you can let go of, even if it maybe feels scary in this moment because you don't know exactly the solution, but knowing that by creating that space to be able to fill up your own cup, the answer will reveal itself, or having that faith at least. I think that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. And something that's been coming up in a couple of my readings that might resonate with the collective is putting a little bit less into the job that you hate. So many people have been working these jobs that are just soul sucking and soul crushing and just are not their dream. And when I tune into that, and again, this has happened so many times in a row that it makes me feel like I should share it. It's like, do even 15% less in that arena and conserve your energy in that way. There are ways that we're draining energy into these things that aren't bringing energy back, that we aren't consciously aware of, that are leading to this burnout. And I believe it's episode 202 with Ria, which is our burnout episode. So that's another really good one to check out if you're resonating with this right now. But I think a lot of us, like Rachel talks about this, she's episode 211. She talks about the need to know as one of those protectors. And I think need to know goes hand in hand with rumination. And so I feel like we're in this moment where there's a lot of change, and 2025 is so much about death and rebirth that there is no way we can know. And it's actually a good thing, because something that our brain could conceive of is completely different than what our spirit asks for sometimes. So I think not knowing is also so magical. And it's also the point of our intuitive development, is releasing the need to know so that we can actually get the truth and navigate these in between moments with more grace and trust. And it always comes back to trust. And so that's why I am so excited to get into our conversation with Karmay today, because we talk about one of our power sources as women, which is our womb space, and how we have been moving through this society, taking masculine energetic strategies, trying to logically think our way through and push our way through in this linear way. And our conversation today is so much about reconnecting to the wisdom in our physical body, reconnecting to the magic of our womb space, listening to what our womb space has to tell us. We look for the answers outside all the time. And I think the first step is actually turning inward. There's more wisdom in our own body, our own heart, our own soul than we could ever find outward. And I think when we can take these uncomfortable protection mechanisms like control, rumination, needing to know all of these things, overthinking, I think that even like period pain, bringing it into the womb space, all of these things are messengers that there's something deeper, that the truth is love. And what do I need to detangle to come back to it? And all of these things are part of the threads that are asking to be detangled, part of the messengers. So I'm so excited to share the conversation with Karmay. Claire, is there anything you want to add before I introduce her?
Yeah, I mean, I just love everything you said. And we talk about this a lot, but this need to know, we have limited information. So we are trying to create an answer out of what we can perceive and is presented with us. But there is something more magical than you could even imagine outside of your knowing. So I think releasing that control of needing to know and trusting that something more magical is on the way if we can create the space for it.
Absolutely. And sometimes on the other side of the rebirth as well, we don't want the same things we always thought we wanted when we were trying to think our way through. That's something that just came through in a client session. She was asking me to feel into all of these dreams she had, and her angels were like, stop right there. It's actually not about these dreams. It's about XYZ that she feels is missing. And these dreams are just an idea that feels like it will fill it in. And in reality, we actually need to come back to just what we said about filling up the cup and reconnecting with that creative muscle. And then what she's going to want to create actually isn't even this anymore. That's just a fantasy. So I think that that is also so relevant to this moment energetically as well. So I'm so excited to introduce Karmay because this conversation was very, very magical. Karmay is the founder of Womb Cosmology and a trauma-informed circle facilitator. Karmay specializes in helping women clear and heal generational trauma and diseases from their wombs, utilizing an integrative approach that combines genetic decoding, womb activations, and intuitive coaching to provide the client with a deeply transformative experience. She channels your spirit guides, ancestors, and angels to work with the subtle vibrations of your body to restore balance. In her free time, she is resting. Talk about what we're talking about right now. In your free time, you're resting. Go off, queen. Self-nourishing, traveling, meditating, and spending time in sisterhood. Welcome, welcome, Karmay. Karmay, welcome to Magic Hour. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Taylor. I've been looking forward to this since you reached out. So I'm really excited to dive in with you today.
Yes, I was scrolling on TikTok and your videos came across my For You page. And I was like, who is this? I must interview her. So thank you. I love to start the podcast by asking you, what is your sun, moon, and rising?
Ooh, yes. I love astrology talk. I am a Leo sun and a Libra rising and a Virgo moon.
I see the Virgo moon in you so deeply. That makes so much sense. And the Libra rising and showing up in your feminine and that Venusian energy, that just makes complete sense. And that Leo is just not afraid to shine your light. It's all coming together.
Yep.
And so my second question is, how does your intuition speak to you?
How does my intuition speak to me? Well, I mean, it speaks to me in a number of different ways, but it truly is an uploading and a downloading of information. And I feel it through my body. I feel the intuition coming up and in and out through my body. Just the little nudges when I have these really quick flashes of insight. And I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? I know that it's a message from my spirit. It's a message from my womb, from my body. And I immediately trust it. And I think that's where we get hung up sometimes as women, is we can get these uploads and downloads and discard it or not listen. And I immediately value what comes through, which is why it's strengthened over the years.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And it makes so much sense to me as a Virgo moon that a lot of your intuition would be felt through your physical body, since Virgo rules that physical body. So what you're saying about that trust is so important. It's interesting and synchronistic that you're bringing this up because I've been talking with a lot of different friends and we've been talking about how that oracle's journey, that intuitive's journey is all about trust. And I feel like as women, we have been so desensitized from experiencing the intuition of our own body. Like we're in this crown chakra dominant society that's all about linear thinking, worrying, logical strategy, and we've lost complete connection to the felt wisdom of our body, which is so sad. And it's also very purposeful. And so in my personal sessions as an intuitive, it's like the most common thing I see where people are in these rock bottom moments or moments where there's so many question marks and they don't know how to move forward. And it's all concentrated up here in the crown chakra. They're trying to think their way through. They're trying to rationalize their way through. And the message always is come back into the truth of what your body wants you to know. So everything you're saying, it almost makes me emotional because we've been so disconnected from our birthright. We've been taught that our bodies are inconvenient and we should keep taking pills to shut down the messages. And in doing so, we've lost complete trust with ourselves and our intuition because we're not trusting our body.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting because what just came up from my spirit as I was listening to you speaking is that women, we access our intuition from our wombs up. And men, they are meant to get their wisdom from their brains down. They need to descend and to get their wisdom. We have that wisdom and that oracle in our womb. So it's going to come up for us. And for the masculine, it's going to come down. And so that's how we can be in alignment with our own anatomical energetic when it comes to intuition. And then sharing that, right, is like when we get it and then valuing it, trusting it, and then sharing what we know with other women and people who need to hear that wisdom, because it's not just for us, it's coming up for the collective to know.
Yes, absolutely. And that's so powerful. I want to get a little bit into your story because I want to save space for different questions that I have for you, but I want to also give the listeners a little clip into how you found your way to working with your womb's wisdom and remembering the mysteries of the womb space that have been erased.
Yes, thank you for that question. It has been a very long but beautiful journey, and a journey where I had to walk through the mystery because I had no idea where it was leading me. I had no idea where I was going, but everywhere that I ended up was exactly where I needed to be. So I would say that my journey really started about 7 years ago in 2018 when I left my corporate job as a sales rep. I had been in sales for about 6 years up until that point, was living a very corporate city girl life and feeling like that was the path that I was meant to be on and that I was going to end up as a sales manager and a sales director. And it got to a point where I really felt this spiritual aridity and death inside of me, where I was just like, what is this all for? What is this all about? It's a cliche story. I think we hear a lot now where we enter that mid-20 life crisis. So I experienced that, my mid-20s life crisis. And I was like, what is this all for? I don't even want to be a sales director. I don't even want to be a sales VP. Like, it doesn't even sound fulfilling to me. I'm a spiritual girl. I want to live in the mystical waters. I want to live in the spiritual waters. I want to live in the magic and the unknown and the mythos of life. And I knew that deep down in my heart. And so in 2018, I made a decision that I was going to leave the way of the mind and follow the way of the heart. And I said, I've already lived 27 years in the mind. What might be possible when I decide to live 25 new years following my heart? I just wanted to come alive. I wanted to be intoxicated with existence. I wanted to feel like I was fully present in the offerings and beauty and the abundance that nature has to offer us. And I felt dead at that time. So I left my corporate job, and the way that the mystery works is I was invited on a retreat into the Amazon jungle in Ecuador to sit with and journey with ayahuasca. And it's so fun. It's one of those moments where it's like, be careful what you ask for, because then you might receive it. And it comes sometimes quicker than you could have even expected it to come. And so I'd been saying for a year before that, I want to journey with ayahuasca. I want to journey with ayahuasca, but I never went looking for it. And it came finding me. And that's a whole other story I won't get into, but it came finding me. And I ended up resisting it when I was invited a few times. And I was like, no, like, I just quit my job. I don't have any money. money. This is the most irresponsible thing to do, would be to leave my job and then spend $3,000 to go to Ecuador and do ayahuasca. What? That doesn't make any sense. I need to work. I started having dreams. And this is how my spirit, as you know, Virgo moon, but I have Virgo in a lot of places, Mars, Venus, and in my 12th house. So very Virgo, Mercurian energy. I started having dreams saying, no, you're going to the Amazon jungle. And it was on repeat. And I was like, where am I going to find this money? I don't have money to go to the Amazon jungle. And she's like, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. And then I found out that I had all these stocks from my company, and I just sold some stocks and got this $3,000. And I was on a plane to Ecuador, and I could not believe it. I was like, wow. So I really want to emphasize this point, because a lot of us can get really afraid to spend money and not trust that we are provided for, and that some higher energy, our soul, our spirit, whatever you call it, is actually looking out for us and has a greater plan for us. And so we can end up saying no to the things that we're deeply afraid of and that we're very scared of, and not knowing that on the other side of that fear is our greatest comeback, is our greatest payback, is our greatest gift. And so if I just didn't go and was afraid to spend money, I would not be here. And I have so many stories like that from friends who are like, oh, I quit my job and I was so afraid. And then someone found me on LinkedIn and I got a new job the next day. And I was like, you were so afraid to quit your job for 3 years and then you just did it. And then you got, you know what I mean? It's like, that is the thing. When you let go, you actually receive so much more. And when you trust, you receive so much more. And so I went and I sat in the Ecuadorian jungle. And when I did the ayahuasca, it went straight to my uterus. And it was the most painful thing. And at this time, I was still very much not where I am now. And so I didn't understand why the ayahuasca went to my uterus, but it felt like an exorcism. It felt like I actually felt ayahuasca's hand, Grandma ayahuasca's hands in my uterus, like wringing out something. And at the time, I thought it was my fallopian tubes. And I was like, why is she in there? And why is she wringing out my fallopian tubes? Turns out it wasn't my fallopian tubes. It was the fibroids that she had immediately localized and immediately targeted, and was immediately working on them. And I was on my period. So it was just a very hot mess, and it was so physical and so painful. But I realized now, looking back at that experience, that it was actually an initiation into the womb mysteries.
Oh my gosh, full body chills. What an amazing story. I want to get into this more with you about the fibroids and the period pain, because I'm a PCOS girly myself and have had a whole healing journey with that. I think it's 1 in 3 women struggle with that these days. So I definitely want to get into that. But at first, I want to acknowledge what you said about how people are afraid to spend money, how people are afraid to take these leaps of faith. It goes back to that idea of trust. And what you were saying too about the intuition coming from the womb up. I feel like we have been conditioned as women to find success through masculine pathways, and we're approaching intuition the same way. And what I want to say is, you can't fix a problem from the consciousness that created it. So when you're in this place and it's like you're afraid to trust, you're afraid to take a leap of faith, you're afraid to follow that silent voice of psyche and intuition and womb wisdom that has a deeper truth for you, and you try to move forward in this way that's linear and rational and logical, that's more of the consciousness that disconnected us in the first place. And so I think that experience that you're talking about of waking up one day at the age of 27, which I always say 25 to 27 is such an important time in our spiritual development, because our brains are fully developed, and it's like a pre-Saturn return little shakeup where it's like everything up until that age is who we've been programmed to be. And then it's like, wait, I'm the author and creator of my own life. And so I have chills, but where I'm trying to go with this is that I just think your story is a perfect example of trying new energetic strategies after the first one led you down a path that was not authentic to who you were and left you feeling desensitized. That ayahuasca experience feels just like the pain was so important, because it's what wasn't felt up until that point of trying to feel the way in the dark based off who you thought you should be. And so I think that that is so powerful. I feel like our ovaries and period pain is constantly waking us up and calling to us and telling us there's deeper healing that needs to be acknowledged. And so often we just numb it with pain meds and TV and alcohol and whatever it is. So I love your story so much. And I think it's so powerful. And I see this all the time in my client sessions too, where people feel like they're feeling around in the dark in their own life. And the first step isn't even sometimes the clarity of how to move forward. The first step is actually sitting with the truth of the emotions that haven't been felt and the discomfort and the shame and the grief and whatever it is. And I think that so much of that lives in our womb. So just so powerful. And I love your story so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And I also loved the part when you were like, your mind was like, how can I spend $3,000 and I don't have a job? What will that look like? And then your dreams with your 12th house moon were like, oh no, this is exactly where you're going. So it's almost like that tug of war between logic and ration versus psyche was in real time in that story, and the psyche went out. So I think that's really beautiful too.
Yeah, I think that's when we have to truly just surrender, because the mind is going to think of all the limitations. It's the ego. It's afraid of dying. It's afraid of not existing. And so when we go into these paths of surrender, we are saying, I'm willing to dissolve what I believe the I am story is, what I believe the existence of me is, and to find a deeper truth, to find a greater existence in this world. And that's what I really wanted. I really wanted a greater existence. At that time, what I found in my womb healing journey is she always removed me from the United States to heal, to get the medicine. She removed me from New York and took me to Ecuador. And then now I live in Mexico City, and she did the same thing. She removed me from the US in 2020 and brought me to Oaxaca, Mexico, where she's like, now you're going to go on a medicine path. So I've been on a medicine journey, medicine path now for about 4 or 5 years. And it was because she knew that as a Black woman, I needed a space where I could fully expand beyond the societal perceptions of who I am. And even for myself, that I had taken on from the collective about who I am as even just a woman. And so I wanted to have a greater truth and a deeper understanding of who am I really. And that was what really that was really the motivation in 2020 when I started having more dreams that something was wrong with my womb. And she was actually telling me, like, in my dreams, no, there's actually something wrong here and you need to address it. And I think it's really important. I do want to share that because I was always going to gyno appointments and getting my pap smears and never getting an ultrasound because we don't get them unless you really ask for them or you're on a conception journey in the US. And so I thought I was being responsible. I thought I was being an adult and mature, getting my STD testings, getting my pap smears. But in all the years of going to the gynecologist, my fibroids were just growing undetected. And it took my own body's wisdom saying, I'm going to tell you that there's something wrong here. And then me being like, okay, what's next? And that was another journey into Oaxaca where I was just like, you know what? I surrender. What do you need me to do? Because I didn't know I had fibroids up until 2023.
That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask during your ayahuasca journey if you knew about the fibroids or if in retrospect that all became clear.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important we walk through the mystery when it's shown to us. We might not understand the full picture in that moment, but we have to trust that we are being led. We have to trust that we are being guided somewhere, even if we can't put it all together right now. That's what the ego wants to do. It wants to make sense of things. And the mystery, the feminine doesn't make sense of things. You just have to trust her.
So true. And I love that about her because it's usually, if not always, more beautiful than the mind could come up with on its own. So I want to go into now your perspective on the spiritual meaning of period pains and what the womb is telling us with things like PCOS and period pains and fibroids.
It's so layered and so contextual depending on what your womb ailment is. But I'll speak from a high level standpoint, and then I'll break it down into some contextual examples.
Goddess bless you, Karmay. I love your Virgo moon. You are so clear and organized.
My brain?
Yes. You're like, this is so layered, but let me break it down for you. And I really appreciate that because that's how I work in my readings too, with really complex topics. So I'm grateful for you for breaking it down for us.
Thank you. Yeah, she's like an Excel doc. She has it all built out and compartmentalized. So I think high level, the first thing is to really understand the womb, right? And so the womb is a spiritual space. That's what I really want to make sure is very clear here. I would say it's more like a 98% spiritual and maybe 2% physical. And we have to understand is the 2% of our physical is really the 2% of what we can see of our physical, right? We can't even see our organs. We can't see our blood. We can't see our muscles. We can't see our tissues. So we're really only seeing a very small percentage of who we are on the physical side of things, on the material side of things. So the womb is just that. She is something that you can't see. And unless you get an ultrasound, I think that's really important because we try to treat her with material means, with physical means, and you really can't treat a spiritual organ, an organ that you can't see, with things that you can see. That's just not how it's going to work. She is in the unseen realms. All right. It's really important to understand that she is mainly a spiritual organ, and she is carrying the genetic imprints and memories and programs of your entire lineage, of your entire feminine lineage and your paternal lineage. But what we really focus on in the womb mysteries is we focus on the yin organs. We focus on healing the maternal lineage because it inadvertently influences the paternal lineage. So it always begins with the feminine, and she always influences the masculine. Always. So that's the first thing to really understand, is that she's carrying the records. And so women are the record keepers. We decide what gets passed on and what doesn't. And the womb is supposed to be a space of unconditional love. She's supposed to be a space of peace and joy and pleasure and trust. She's supposed to be this beautiful divine space, but she has been congested through patriarchal abuse and oppression with trauma. All right. So this space that used to be a space of passing on love and beauty is now passing on ugliness and trauma. And so it's really up to us as women to purify, cleanse, and clear the womb so that we can return to a state of embodiment. And so we as women are really fragmented because the womb has been deeply pushed into the great recesses of our psyche. And it's really painful for a woman because a woman and a womb were interwoven since the beginning of creation. And so when we have this split, there's a split inside of us. There's a split inside of our own consciousness. There's a split inside of our own being that we have to then go on a journey of self-remembrance to gather back our energy, to cut off the energetical leaks out of our womb into other realms, which I won't even get into, but that is really important. As women, we need to be totally in integrity with our energetics and mastering our womb once again. All right. And so when we have these fibroids, polyps, cysts, endometriosis, it's because we're not embodying the energetical womb. Okay. So I want to make that very clear. We're not embodying the energetical womb. The energetical womb is sitting outside of our body. And when it's sitting outside of our body, it is vulnerable to attacks, to psychic attacks. And so these low level frequencies, negative energies, they see a vulnerable womb and they begin to implant their energies into it so they can start feeding off of it. So our womb is the rawest sexual primal energy in the entire universe. The womb is the greatest technology in the physical world. All right. And so depending what you believe, if you believe in demonic attacks or like all these different things, then you would understand that there's a spiritual war going on. Okay. And that spiritual war has been to make sure women are numbed out, fragmented, disembodied, so that we can be easily controlled. Our energies can be easily controlled and manipulated and fed on. Okay. And so the world on a great sphere is actually, the womb is powering this whole energetical world because we are rebirthing the patriarchal stories through our womb. We're rebirthing the his story and not the her story through our womb. And that's what we want to come back to, is once we reclaim our womb, we reclaim our energetical wombs, we master our energies, we will start birthing the her story once again. So what I generally say is if you have fibroids, polyps, endo, you have maybe 10 fibroids or your endo has spread everywhere, that means that you and your energetical womb are very far away from each other. She's in the distance, right? But once you start healing it, you start drawing the energy back to you, and you cut the cords, the vows, and the curses and the hexes that we've made in the spiritual worlds to being disembodied and living in a fear-based consciousness, then those fibroids, those polyps, those endos, those cysts, they'll start to clear up naturally. They'll start to clear up naturally and they'll start to fall away naturally. And so that's what I've learned with my fibroids is fibroids, for example. So now I'll break it down into what a certain womb ailment can be. So fibroids for me have been really about healing the ways that I have been embodying and have imprinted the energetics of punishment, of guilt. And this is deep feminine. This is a story for many women, this deep feminine wound of feeling like we're wrong or that we're bad, and that actually having a lot of power we might hurt someone or we might do something bad. And I get that from clients sometimes. I'm afraid to actually access my part. What if I hurt someone? What if I do something wrong? It's actually a distortion of a story to keep you small so that you never access your true power, right? That's one side of fibroids. Another side of fibroids is also carrying the inner conflict of men in your lineage, carrying whatever inner conflict that may be, whether that's self-hate, whether that is manifest as addictions, as cheating. Women who generally have fibroids have a history in their maternal lineage of men being somewhat abusive in their own way. Even if they weren't hitting or harming a woman, they were being abusive and harmful in some way. And the women in that lineage protecting them in order to maintain the family. So what I always say is something, it's holding on to you because there's something you are holding on to. It's attached to you because there's something you're attached to. And it's really important that you then dissolve that so it can detach and it can come out of your body. For endometriosis, that's another one that's really plagues a lot of women. And I actually have a client right now that we're really decoding that one. It's so deep and complex. But what I've generally seen for women with endometriosis, they really come from a lineage of a patriarchal lineage. So the women were often domesticated. They were stay-at-home moms, and they weren't ever really able to fully express their femininity, to go on a journey of expressing their passions or being fully realized or fully actualized or fully enlightened, or they just felt really trapped in their homes. And everything was about external validation, about external achievements. And so these women end up really abandoning and rejecting their feminine nature as a way to survive. And so that endometrial imposter tissue that's going out and spreading everywhere is because there's a feeling of that imposter tissue. There's somewhere in that person's life where they feel like they're being a fraud, where they're not being true to themselves. And they're trying to fit into a patriarchal system that they're not meant to fit into. Okay, so that's that feeling of being a fraud comes from, is because you're not being true to who you are in order to survive. So all of these womb ailments, to be quite frank, are developed as a way to survive in a patriarchal culture.
And what about the spiritual meaning of PCOS?
So it's really interesting. The way that I decode my womb ailments is through working with people who have them. So I have not yet had a PCOS client, and I am welcoming whoever is listening and wants to work with me. PCOS, I really get it's like being in medical school, it's like doing research. The more clients I have in that space, the more information that I get. And what I get the most are fibroids, because I obviously have them. And then I get endometriosis clients a lot, because that's a really big one that a lot of people struggle with. I've had women with polyps and cysts, but I'm really looking for some more different ones like vaginitis, cervicitis, PCOS, things like that.
Yeah, well, as somebody with PCOS, I can speak to my healing journey and what I've observed about the energetics of it. In my background, I've engaged in certain dynamics where I've let people walk on my needs. And I think PCOS can be a sneaky one to diagnose because it's so easily masked with birth control and other things. And I feel like that speaks to the energetic nature of where the imbalance in the womb is itself, and that it's like not acknowledging your needs, letting other people walk on you, always being the bigger person, making sacrifices in these ways that just do not feel good but are expected of you. And I think that this is one that's very common with the empath narcissist dynamic and sort of giving your power away. And to me, as I've been healing that dynamic, I remember it was actually the summer solstice, and I confronted my biggest bully. And that was the first period that I never had cramps, didn't have to take a single Advil in my entire life. My whole life has been defined by PCOS and period pains, and that's affected the work that I could take, that's affected the trips I could go on, that's affected, I couldn't even make it to the hospital at the very end when my mom was dying because I was in the bathtub with excruciating period pain. So I think that what you're saying about the 98% emotional, 2% physical really resonates with me, because the emotional healing was such a big part of my physical healing. And from the emotional distress that was carried in my womb, what I was birthing into my life, was not a reflection of my authenticity or power either. And so I think when we have those, our womb spaces, which are like where we create from, and they are holding so much pain that needs to be felt and acknowledged, it affects what we're manifesting and birthing into our life as well. And I just want to say a couple things about what you said. One is with the fibroids, you were saying that abusive men in the lineage, but also the feeling of, is it safe to be powerful? Is it safe to take up too much space? And I feel like that's such a connection to the witch wound as well. And I think the witch wound and the womb space are so interconnected with the pain that we've carried. And by the way, I think you said this earlier, that speaking of women as the record keepers of their lineage, that hit me in the full heart way. And that's so powerful. And it gives us the power back. We have the power in every moment to say, no more. I'm going to break this cycle. Every moment is this beautiful, miraculous chance to make a new choice and co-create with the higher powers that are always guiding us. So I just really loved that. We are the record keepers. We have our pencil and eraser, and we can decide what wants to be carried down into the next generation. So full body chills with that. I did want to comment on the demon thing. And by the way, I totally respect everybody's different spiritual beliefs. That's why Magic Hour podcast is not just for me and my perspective. I want to share different viewpoints with my community, and it's all about magic in the world. That being said, as a psychic medium, my personal belief is that the spirit world is all love, and I think lower vibrational forces exist here on earth. And so for me, our demons are our unhealed shadows, are the patterns of abuse and fear and neglect and hate that get passed down and exist here in the physical world. And I do think they have very real energetic implications as well. And so I definitely agree that that infects our womb space, and that our womb spaces are these sponges that can soak all of that energy up. But in terms of like psychic attacks and things like that, what I talk about a lot on the podcast is that's not my personal belief.
Yeah. Before we dive into that, I do want to chat about the PCOS a bit more, because that stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome, for anybody who's not sure about that. I do want to talk about what the ovaries are and what I know the ovaries are and what my spirit has downloaded to me. And I think that could be very helpful for anybody struggling with PCOS to get more insight as to why they have this syndrome. The first thing is that the ovaries are the record keepers, okay? They are holding our eggs inside of them, which are basically unbirthed potential, but also, in my belief and what I've understood them to be, is unbirthed ancestors from different dimensions. They could be from past, future, it doesn't matter, but they are unbirthed potential and energetics in our own lineage, okay? So they hold the records, they're holding the DNA, they're holding the mitochondrial DNA for our entire lineage. And mitochondrial DNA is obviously the most powerful and strongest and ancient DNA that a woman carries. And so the ovaries are very much connected to our brains. All right. So we have a vagus nerve that extends down from the nape of our neck all the way down into our wombs, and it connects into our ovaries. And that's how the body is able to send signals around which hormones to release at a certain point, progesterone and estrogen. It tells the body, and they're communicating when to release these. So that's very much connected to the pituitary gland, all right, about when and what time to release. And the ovaries are also our timekeepers. So they know when it's your time to drop an egg for menstruation. It knows when it's time for you to start becoming a bleeding woman. It knows when it's time for you to go into your crone era of being a menopausal woman or premenopausal woman. It's your timekeepers, it's your record keepers, but most of all, the ovaries hold memory. Okay, they're holding the memory itself. So if there is a lot of pain along the ovaries, that means there's a lot of unprocessed, unmetabolized, dense pain and memory that the lineage is holding. Now, I always look at which side are the cysts growing. Is it on the right side or on the left side? If it's on the right side, then I know there's a lot of paternal pain that the female lineage is carrying in the body from men in that lineage. If it's on the maternal side, from the left side, then I'm thinking, okay, this really has to do with what the females are holding in this lineage and what their pain is. So I look at both sides when it comes to that to diagnose it. And then I know, okay, we need to go in here and see what memory has been buried and repressed and suppressed on this side of the lineage that an ancestor is begging to bring to light, is begging to bring to life. And we have learned in our culture is to just forget the past, to bury the past, to move forward. The thing is that we don't bury the past. It comes with us. And when our mothers are creating our bodies inside of her womb from one cell, it is creating our entire body from that memory in that cell. And so all of that memory is going all over your entire body and in your entire nervous system. And you live it out, you experience it in your own incarnation. And so the womb is a space that recycles, and she's a space of repetition. Okay. And so if we're not clearing the memories, if we're not even honoring the stories, then that's when pain can really, really start to manifest. It is essentially an ancestor knocking on the door and begging for her release because she's still caged in there.
Yes, that is so powerful. And when you are speaking about how we are always wanting to bury the memories, what came through for me is we can't afford that. This world cannot afford to bury the memories. We are destroying ourselves. And the planet is on a bigger scale such a parallel mirror to women's bodies and what the patriarchy thinks it can take from both. And we can't afford to not connect to our intuition. We can't afford to bury our memories. We can't afford to not be powerful anymore. We don't have much time left if we continue to just burn our own home alive and burn our own bodies alive. So that's so powerful. And I wanted to talk a bit about what you said too about the vagus nerve. I didn't realize that it connected into our womb space. That's so powerful. And something that comes through for me a lot in my intuitive readings with clients is there's so many people that are struggling on their fertility journey at this moment, where I feel like maybe it's just because of social media, we're more aware of it, but it seems like more people are struggling to get pregnant than ever before. And I think that that's part of that disconnection from the womb space and living from our head and not listening to our body. And so often, as I'm feeling into my clients, there's this sense of your body isn't softened enough for a spirit to come in. I feel this sense of you're forgetting to eat, you're on Zoom chronically all day in meetings, you're stressed out. There's these subtle signals coming from that vagus nerve down to the womb space it's not safe to carry a baby because we're constantly in stress. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the energetics of that.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you asked me about that. So yes, spirit babies right now are afraid to drop into the womb. I'm going to say that again. Spirit babies are afraid to drop into the womb. It is a scary place, and it is holding a lot of haunted tales. Okay. And in order for the spirit baby to want to actually come into a physical incarnation, it's actually a lot of the spirit babies right now are initiating their mothers into a deeper journey of embodiment.
That's what I feel too.
They are initiating their mothers into a deeper journey of embodiment so that they can be birth embodied themselves. It is not just going to be about you as the mom. The spirit baby also wants to co-create with you how it lands into the body, how it incarnates into this material realm. And so what I've been seeing, I've been taking fertility clients right now, not just fertility clients, women that actually just are getting ready to prepare their containers for conception, because conception is an energetic experience. It's about being in energetic alignment with your womb. And so one of the 5 principles of creation that I talk about are pleasure, detachment, divine timing, faith, and patience. And a lot of us are not conceiving from a place of pleasure. We're conceiving from a place of pain, of tension, of stress, and also a lot of resentment at the womb because she is not giving us the thing that we deeply desire, which is a baby. Okay. And so we have to ask ourselves, and there's a lot of love, why would your baby want to land inside of your womb when you're creating from that space? When you're creating from a space of resentment and anger. These spirit babies don't want women to continue a programmed story that they are powerless. It wants you to empower yourself. It wants you to come to a space where you, as a woman, are fully sovereign and liberated and own your own energy so it can come into a pleasurable joyful space. So what I say actually is a lot of women are not infertile like they've been told. They're just not living in their energetics. And so I want to break this down about how this works. So what we've been taught since we were children about conception has all been a lie. It's a patriarchal fantasy fairy tale around how conception happens. And I just did a TikTok about this last week that went viral because so many people were like, oh my God, I had no idea this was. So what were we told in school? We were told that when the sperm leaves the penis and it's going into the vagina, it is essentially the man and his sperm, they have all the agency, all the power in the conception process. It is a race to the finish line, and the sperm are competing against each other in order to see who gets to the egg first and who gets to dive in there. And then that's it. And then she basically chooses which one. But other than that, the sperm is the one leading the charge, and the feminine is just waiting there passively, just like, okay, well, I guess whatever one gets to me is the one that gets me. No, that's not at all how it works. In the last 4 to 5 years, scientists have actually been sharing the real narrative. And I say the real narrative because for a long time, the scientists who've been talking about conception have been men. And now we actually have female scientists who are looking at conception and they're saying, wait, this is actually not what's happening here. So what's actually happening when it comes to conception is, I also believe personally now that what we've been taught around energetics is completely distorted and backwards. And what I mean by that is we've been taught that the feminine is yin, passive, and just responds and waits, and she's just there. And the masculine is all about action and urgency and being the first and doing the thing. That's actually not at all what's happening when it comes to conception. So when the egg drops from the ovaries, again, are saying it's time. So she knows in that ovulation window, she's saying it's time for you to drop. And the egg goes, wee, and it goes down into a little fallopian tube, and it's there. And the sperm is coming out, and a man is releasing about 150 million sperm at once. And the woman's reproductive system is essentially an obstacle course, for lack of better words. And sperm do not have eyes. So they would not be able to actually find the egg. Okay, this is very important. They themselves, they're not winning, they're not racing, they're not swimming. They would not be able to find the egg unless she sends receptors, attractive receptors, to the sperm to tell her where she is. She is the one who is actually leading this entire process. Okay, she's not sitting there passively. She's not wondering which sperm will find her. She's actually dictating which sperm will find her. All right, you can look this up on NPR. There's a whole research study, and it's called Do Sperm Really Swim? So what's happening is she's saying, okay, out of the 150 million sperm, I'm going to send these attractor chemicals out through the fallopian tube and down through the cervix into the vagina. And I'm going to tell which sperm I want to find me. The other sperm, she sends another chemical signal that says, actually, you're not fit. And the reason why they're not fit is because they have DNA defects, they have genetic damage, they might just not be suitable for her. Okay, so she's just saying, you guys come, you guys say, it's almost like red light, green light. Okay, she's like, red light, green light. And then they're like, okay, I can go now. And so what's also happening is she's communicating to the womb and she's saying, okay, the sperm have entered the building. Let's make it easy for them to get to me, because the sperm, they look like little tadpoles. So they have heads and then they have these little squigglies at the end. And that's people think they're swimming, right? And in the tadpole part of them, the tail, they have mitochondrial DNA. And where does mitochondrial DNA come from? Their mother, okay? When conception happens, the male's mitochondrial DNA is killed off and the feminines continue. So even in this process of conception from a man to a woman, it is still the feminine almost making love to the feminine, okay? So here's this tail coming in and she's telling the womb, release this fluid to help the sperm. So they release this fluid. And once the sperm make contact with this fluid, they're able to move their tails more intensely to find her. So it's like they kind of are swimming at that point, but they're doing so with the help of the womb, with the support of the womb. And so as they're making it through, some of them are making it through and some of them are not making it through. Some of them went to the wrong fallopian tube. Some of them just never made it out of the vagina. So there's compounds in the womb that are going to attack and eat and break down the other 150 million sperm that she doesn't want to make it to her. And so say a few, actually 250 sperm out of 150 million actually make it to the egg. But of that 250 sperm, I think the percentage was like 5 to 10% are viable. So basically they're like turned off. All right. And there's some that are turned on, even the ones that get to her. And so at that point, what's happening as that sperm was making his journey through the feminine. So remember how I said earlier that the feminine needs to get her intuition bottom up from body up, and the masculine, he gets his from going from top to going down into his genitals. It's actually different when it comes to conception. The energetics of meeting God, that's how I like to put it, is the feminine descends. She's dropping an egg for conception. She's dropping an egg for menstruation. That's how she meets God, right? And then the masculine goes up to meet God, right? He's ascending. His sperm is coming out from his testicles, right? From the bottom, up through his prostate, and then out through an erect penis, okay? That's how we meet God. Women descend, men ascend, right? But men are ascending into where? The feminine portal. A woman never needs to leave herself to find God. I'm going to say that again so women can hear in the back. Women never need to leave themselves or to lose themselves to meet God. We are actually fully resourced inside of the womb. We are fully resourced to our divinity.
That makes a lot of sense because these male dominated fields like science and even archaeology, everything reports back from this masculine point of view of divinity and science and all of these creation myths. But in reality, it reminds me of When God Was a Woman. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's such a good one by Merlin Stone. And we have all of these ideas about women being passive and waiting and just being open to receive. But there are actually ancient accounts of like sun goddesses and things like that that have been so erased. So I think it's really beautiful to recognize nothing about women is passive and weak. That's what's been conditioned into us, even just in the ways that you don't have to be a mother or bring a child into this world for this to be true. But this is just an example of the way that our body protects and provides for our baby in our womb. We are protectors. We are providers. We are warriors. We are compassionate. We are powerful. This narrative of who we've been taught to be is so not in alignment with what the divine feminine really is.
Absolutely not. It has been completely turned on its head. We're living in an inverted world. That's why we have the distortions that we have right now, because as you can see, and I'll finish this story in a second with conception, as you can see with this sperm and egg dance that's happening, she's very much leading the charge. She's very much leading the process. She's very much co-creating with this sperm, supporting the sperm, helping the sperm find her and reach her. Like, she is not just sitting there in la-da-da land looking for someone to save her. You know, she's not a damsel in distress. She's very much a warrior in her own conception process. And so what happens is, as the sperm is moving through the reproductive channel to find the egg in that fallopian tube, he is being stripped of an extra layer, coated layer around his sperm body in order to fully come to her naked. Okay, I want people to really understand this when it comes to conception, is that the masculine also needs to be in this state of vulnerability. He needs to be in the state of vulnerability for implantation to actually happen. All right, he needs to be willing to come to the feminine raw, to be seen, to be bare, and to merge with her. That is the most important thing. He is merging with all there is. He is returning to all there is. Energetically, he needs to be in that state of truly respecting the feminine within himself first. And so he reaches her, and then he's stripped bare. And then what we've been told is he just dives in there, right? He just attacks her, just the patriarchy wants for men. What's actually happening is he arrives to the egg. She chooses this one, and she has this, I don't know if it's like membranes around her egg, but she is actually wrapping herself around the sperm and pulling him in. She's pulling him in. In an NPR article, they say, oh, she's like a sperm catcher, like a sperm trapper. She's like a sperm trapper where she's got it because she doesn't want the sperm to get away. He's squiggling around and she needs to get him in there.
A Venus sperm trap.
Yeah, a Venus sperm trap. That's what she's doing. But that's the energetic of conception. And what I want women to understand is, For you to be able to conceive, right? What is the egg being? What energetic state is that egg in? She is in her full power, her full sovereignty, her full authority. She's owning her full authority as a leader. And that's what I tell women is like, look at our biology as a teacher. This is why there were so many fertility cults, because that's what they looked at to understand the truths of the universe is women are actually the ones who are leaders, natural born leaders. And we are the ones who are actually deciding what over 150 million sperm do.
Yeah.
That's how powerful you are.
Yeah, and we see that women are so powerful in leadership roles and in running their own families, their businesses, everything. I love the way that science is getting closer to the truth the more that women are involved in what the story is. I just wanted to circle back really quickly to that idea of spirit babies as helping their mothers. I think that that is such an important point because I think what I want to add to that is that when you're in that stress state and you are not listening to yourself and you're go, 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 and you're creating from those places, like you were saying, of not being in the pleasure, but being in the pain or the resentment or the stress. I think these spirit babies are also coming in to do exactly what you said, which is help their mother come into a more embodied state of consciousness and wisdom. And I think that's really important because I also think once you bring a baby into this world, there's so much more about sacrifice and taking care of them that if you haven't already gotten those lessons, it's going to be a million times harder and you're going to crash a million times harder. And so I think that these spirit babies are such beautiful beings of pure love that want their mothers to get that lesson so that they can have a full cup to mother from as well.
Yeah, that's what the Divine Mother is actually asking. She doesn't want wounded mothers in this next phase of life where they are giving from an empty cup, where they are looking for their babies to save them, looking to get the unfulfilled love they didn't get from their parents, from their child. Because it's just going to continue that cycle of resentment and that cycle of anger and that cycle of being unappreciated. The way that you feel appreciated is by appreciating your body, is by worshiping the goddess within you, and by allowing yourself to recognize and to learn what your gifts and your medicine are, and then sharing that with the world. That's where you get your appreciation from. But your children not own you that. And they are sovereign beings. They are going to be sovereign beings in the world, and they deserve to have a mother that is in her full development, that she has fully matured and she's not acting from the space of a wounded inner child, wounded inner girl, and feeling like, she's sacrificing all the time and she doesn't know how to say no and she's always overextending or whatever it is, or she's lashing out, she's being emotionally manipulative. I mean, if we have not mastered our energetical wounds, that means we haven't mastered our emotional bodies. And so this whole journey of womb healing and returning to womb sovereignty, what I teach with my clients who want to go on conception journeys and fertility journeys is really clearing your vessel of all the unhealed generational traumas to returning to a crystalline womb. Okay. And crystalline comes from Christ. And Christ essentially just means pure, innocent channel, pure, innocent body. I had a conversation with somebody else the other day about this, and they were saying, yeah, it's because she's been hearing spirit babies say, I am the return of Christ consciousness. So these babies really do want to come into their full authority and into their full soul's destiny, but they need a crystalline, healed womb in order to do it so they can bring Christ consciousness back onto this world. So that's a whole other conversation, but that is what we work with when we're working with healing the womb.
That's beautiful. And I just want to add also deciding not to have children from a place of empowered authenticity is also very powerful for womb healing, I believe, too, because so many previous generations either didn't have a choice or didn't have a choice in who they created bloodlines with, or only felt their worthiness through if they could have children. And so I think also honoring your soul by exploring your authentic path in a way that either you can become a mother or not, but doing it in a way that feels so authentic and full body yes to you is so, so healing. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation. And I know we're coming close to time, but I just wanted to ask you if there's any quick little, and I know this work is not quick, but if there's anything that you could recommend to the hummingbird community of how they can tap into what their womb wants them to know right now.
That's a great question. I would say that a good place to start would be on my YouTube. I have practices and rituals where you can learn how to clear your ovaries, for example, something that we've never learned to do. Really great for PCOS clients or anyone with ovarian cysts. That is one way as well. Breast and womb massage is a great way. Yoni steams is a great way. But a simple way is to just put your hands on your womb in upside down yoni mudra, which is upside down triangle, and to just breathe into it and to sit into it and to ask her, what do you want from me? And you might not get an answer in that moment, but if you make the question, she will guide you. And that is exactly what happened to me. Is I wasn't listening. I didn't know my womb even had a voice. I didn't even know she had a consciousness. But I remember after having all this womb pain in 2020, I just put my hands on her and I was like, what is this? What is here? What do you want me to know? How do you want me to heal this? And then she showed me the way. But then once you get the way shown, you have to then respond.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Karmay, I could talk to you all day. You are such a wealth of knowledge. I enjoyed this so much. And I know that the community is going to want to work with you and dive deep into everything you have to offer. So where can they find you?
Oh, yeah. So I would say there's a number of places to find me. One is on my YouTube at Womb Cosmology, also on my TikTok at Womb Cosmology. That's where I really post daily. And then for folks who are millennials and they don't have TikToks, you can find me on my Instagram at Karmay Sahara. That's more like friends and family, but it's an open public account. And then also for folks who want to work with me and they want to dive deep with me and you really want to go on a very empowered and embodied conception journey and you want to create a crystalline container and you want to bring in your spirit babies, I'll just send you a link of where they can sign up for a one-on-one womb consultation call with me. I'm currently accepting private coaching clients, and I have a course as well that I relaunch in July for folks who are interested in more of a group experience, and also for anybody who has womb ailments. That's my main bread and butter. And so if you felt like you've tried everything under the sun, whether it be painkillers or acupuncture or Ayurvedic medicine, and you don't feel like nothing has worked, then I invite you to self-initiate and to work with me inside of a very specialized and highly beautiful container to heal your womb in a spiritual womb mystery way.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much for sharing your wisdom with us all.
Thank you, Taylor. This was so fun. I had a great time.
Welcome back to Sitting with Spirit, my loves, the part of the podcast where I sit with our angels, our guides, our loved ones in spirit, and give the messages for the collective. As always, take what resonates and leave the rest. Before I get into the angel messages today, I wanted to talk about a little bit of a funny message that I received. So the other day, I was talking to my angels and it was feeling a little bit anxious. I was like, angels, I need a sign and I need this and I need that. And the humanity and the inner villain voice was really starting to bleed into my spiritual practice, as it does with everybody, no matter what level of your development. And I got this message that basically the way we talk to our angels and our guides in moments that feel disharmonious is an insight into our attachment style. And I found that to be really interesting. So I would say that I am pretty much secure attachment with all of the work that I've done on myself, but I can lean towards anxious in moments of dysregulation. And so for me, it's like I could feel that anxiousness creeping into my attachment with my angels and guides in the way that I was talking to them. I was so needy and anxious and fear-based. And then I was thinking about how some people, when they're going through times of difficulty, are like, I don't need anyone. I've got my own back. I don't even believe in my angels and guides, or maybe even I don't want to know what they have to say and might have more of an avoidant attitude towards it. So it's interesting how there's insights there. Like our relationships with our angels and our guides hold up such a mirror to how we love and connect and trust and communicate with people here on the physical plane. So I just wanted to point that out because I found it to be really interesting. So the first angel message that came through for the week today was the Libra archetype, and it was very much in shadow and highlighting this frantic feeling in the crown chakra. And I feel like there's a few different ways to interpret this symbol that could be possible manifestations that I'm just going to list out. Take what resonates with you. So one major message that I feel is that we are really in a moment of cycle breaking within this Libra archetypal consciousness. So let me break it down. So Libra is the zodiac sign. And by the way, as an astrologer, my angels and guides speak a lot to me through the language of astrology. Your angels and guides will always speak to you through what your expertise is. That's why a lot of medical intuitives have a nursing background or things like that. So for me, they speak a lot through archetypal consciousness as related to astrology. And the Libra archetype is tied to balance, relationships, collaboration, partnerships, beauty, and divine feminine in more of the airy, esoteric art sense, less of the earthy, body grounded sense. That's Taurus as the divine feminine. This is a Venus ruled sign. And I get the feeling that we are cycle breaking the stories that were told to us by previous generations about what these Libra themes look like and what's acceptable and what we should accept in our life. So, for example, one part of this feels like a major rewriting of the stories that we tell ourselves about what healthy relationships actually look like. And it's interesting because something I was feeling is that this moment energetically is less about waiting for other people's responses and reactions and not waiting for them to do things, but instead taking the power from what's in your control here and now. And so it feels like it's this moment where we're really assessing, is this an equal partnership? I feel like I'm giving my all. What am I getting in return? And where are the stories that I've been telling myself about this, keeping me in an illusion of stuckness or trappedness or victim consciousness? And so I feel like there is almost this trapped feeling for some of you, where I feel like you're going back and forth in your head, playing judge and jury over what your heart knows to be true. And that's another shadow side of Libra energy, is that playing devil's advocate, second guessing, indecision, going back and forth. And I feel like that's also a part of what is asking to be released at this moment. For a lot of you, you might have outgrown your romantic relationships, or your romantic relationships have entered a comfort zone based off of what stories you've inherited about what is acceptable in partnerships. And I feel like right now is this big, shadowy excavation of all things Libra energy. And I wanted to say too that a part of this energy feels very connected to truth. I feel like the head has been going back and forth in that Libra indecision, weighing all the options way. And I feel like what needs to really be heard is what's in our heart chakra, our throat chakra, and our third eye. I feel like we are really needing to come back to our deepest truth. And our deepest truth might be, I have grief to feel. Our deepest truth might be, I don't know what comes next, but I know this isn't working here and now. And so I feel like there is just this need for major throat chakra upgrades, for really connecting with our truth, and for not playing judge and jury in our head over what our heart is speaking to us, or we are going to feel stuck and we're going to believe that illusion of trappedness or scarcity consciousness. A big part of this shadowy Libra theme too is going back to that feeling of unequal partnerships or no give and take, and sort of how I feel, especially as women, how we've been programmed to give everything 110%, how that has a beautiful aspect to it, but I feel like the pendulum has almost swung too far, and that it's actually a trauma response at this point, where it feels like, okay, we have to feel safe to loosen the reins, to let ourselves give a little bit less, or else if we're always giving 110%, we're enabling the other person in the side of the equation to give 10%, 20%, never meet us with their 100%. And by giving them the opportunity to really love us by loosening the reins and doing less, it helps us step into that more healed Libra archetype. I've noticed this pattern where so much of feminine energy is all about self-improvement. And that's a big part of the zeitgeist right now. It's a big part of magic hour is reconnecting to intuition and magic. But I hope that the intention is more from a place of whimsy and life satisfaction and joy, and not a militant need to constantly be bettering ourselves, quote unquote. It's not that there's anything wrong with that. I just think that it can be taken too far sometimes, where we forget the actual point of life is joy. And it's interesting because as a psychic medium who connects with your loved ones on the other side, I think that there are definitely spirits who come through who are like, I wish that I worked on myself more and I wish I had more awareness. But we can't forget the biggest message that they give me, which is, I wish I enjoyed my life a little bit more. I wish I worried less. I wish I made the jump. I wish I followed my passions. And so we can't forget to do that. We can't get stuck in this constant cycle of trying to better ourselves. At some point, we have to decide that we're worthy here and now. And that's what I feel with this shadowy Libra energy, is that for some of us, we might just be waiting a little bit longer, pushing the yardstick a little bit further back, saying, I'll be ready for this blessing when XYZ happens. And I just feel like the sense is no more waiting, no more debating, no more playing judge and jury. It's time for such deep truth in this moment. And I also feel like there might be a lot of question marks. I feel like there might be a lot of unknown in the energy that we're navigating right now. And that can be stimulating a lot of overthinking, second guessing, and worrying. And in that place of fear and unknown, we can often latch on to trying to get responses from people outside of ourselves to make us feel safer. And I feel like everything is asking us to be regulated in our own truth in this moment. And this very much also feels tied to that ancestral cycle breaking, like I was talking about, of what our ancestors would accept in partnership in ways that previous generations maybe felt trapped or like they had limited options. And I feel like this is this really powerful moment to really consider all of those Libra themes in your life and seeing where there needs to be a different allocation of energy, of give and take, and where you might be giving your power away, waiting for someone else to change. After a certain point, if they're not changing, you're co-creating in powerlessness with them, and it's time to take your power back. So this feels really powerful. It feels a little activated. It feels a little deep, but it feels like what is really important right now. And so that is that throat chakra upgrade that feels so important, especially this week, but really for this whole year of just radically connecting to our truth. So then I saw this beautiful symbol of plants made of purple light. And purple is like my color for creativity and passion and main character energy. And so plants are very nourishing and life-giving. And so I feel like there is this message here of following your creativity, nurturing the garden of your life, planting more seeds in alignment with what feels good and creative and generative. And I think that's very much what is in our power right now. What do we want to create? What do we want to grow? What do we want to nourish ourselves with? And we don't need to rely on anyone outside of ourselves for that process. So I do feel this really beautiful energy that's tied to co-creation, creativity, beauty, flow, and just becoming more of ourselves through those processes. I also saw this really beautiful image that tied to simplicity and communal living. And I feel like living closer to the land, living with more nature, I feel a connection to friendships, and like really leaning on community also feels very important. And we don't need to rely on anyone outside of ourselves for that process. So I do feel this really beautiful energy that's tied to co-creation, creativity, beauty, flow, and just becoming more of ourselves through those processes. I also saw this really beautiful image that tied to simplicity and communal living. And I feel like living closer to the land, living with more nature, I feel a connection to friendships, and really leaning on community also feels very important. This is not competing with that Libra message. The Libra message about not waiting on other people to do things, that doesn't mean you can't have community and friendships and support along the way. That Libra message is more about believing false stories of powerlessness, giving your power away to other people that you're in partnerships with, and not seeing what's in your control here and now. So that's a completely different message. I'm not saying you have to do everything by yourself. I do feel like there's an important communal friendship, beautiful connection to the land and nature and leaning on each other that is also coming through. And with that, there's this feeling of going back to our roots, and not going back to our roots in terms of previous generations who were in huge amounts of suffering and fear and patriarchal consciousness, but actually going all the way back to our roots, to the ancestors who were connected to the land, to the divine, to their power, to all of that juicy yumminess that throughout the years we've been disconnected from. And those ancestors are here to help you, connecting back to this primal energy that lives within all of us. And I feel like we're in this moment right now where we're really asked to lean on faith and strength. We're really being called to be strong right now, and to trust ourselves, and to keep living in alignment with what the truth of our heart asks for, even if it doesn't make rational sense yet. It just feels like everything is bringing us back to the here and now. We are releasing overthinking. We are releasing people pleasing. We are releasing stories of powerlessness. We are releasing worrying about the future, worrying about our 5-year plan. It just feels like everything wants you to come back to the magic and the co-creation of the present moment. So as I was starting to tune into the mediumship, I actually felt a baby in spirit who passed to the other side while she was in utero. And I heard the name Heather and I heard the name Allison. So I feel like this might be a universal message for more than one of you. And I feel like there is a connection with those names to who the mother would have been. And it might be a Heather and an Allison, because I think that there is sort of, with sitting with spirit, since this goes out to so many people, there's an element of it tacking on and spirits working together to share the messages to more than one person. So I felt a baby girl in the spirit world. I feel like she would have gone into the spirit world around 3 or 4 months. And I feel like part of her purpose in coming into her mother's womb was that there was some other health thing that was found because of the pregnancy. So there's something coming up here. If you didn't tune into your body, tune into your health, and get an exam for the pregnancy, I feel like another health thing would have been missed. And this makes me feel like this baby girl came through for the sole purpose of wanting you to connect back to your own health and your own body and taking care of yourself, because she was also making me feel like you weren't quite ready for her to come through yet. And she was showing me communication issues with your partner, and that this intense moment was also designed to help you get on the same page and open up deeper with them. So the message here from this spirit baby, who feels like an extremely old soul, is that sometimes we come through for the purpose of helping you. Like these mothers and fathers and parents who want to bring forward children into the world have such a selfless desire to nurture and help. But sometimes the spirit babies feel the same way about us, where they're like, we actually just want to come through for a brief moment in time to guide you, to set you on a different trajectory, to help you connect to your health, to show you what needs to go, to show you what isn't working for you anymore. I saw a white owl as a sign from this spirit baby, and she said, you will be pregnant again. I will come back. So there's also just a feeling of trusting the timing with when this baby wants to come through. And she was also really highlighting gut health and solar plexus upgrades. And solar plexus is so tied to identity, self, and confidence and inner child. And so I feel like there is this sense of you going through an identity upgrade, you evolving into another version of self. And I feel like this pregnancy was here to kickstart that process and to not be too hard on yourself, because what this spirit baby was communicating to me is that time works differently on the other side, and that here in the physical world, time can feel so slow and it feels like we're here for so long, but the perception of the spirit world is like a blink of the eye. So for the spirit babies that are waiting to come in and to our ancestors, it's like they're not feeling time in the same way we do. So there is this sense of when we are at the end of our life, it's like we reunite so quickly because our experience of time is different. So there is this sense too of don't beat yourself up, trust the timing. From your spirit baby's perspective, everything is happening in the blink of an eye, and she will be back. So I feel like this is just a reminder for the collective. If you're having fertility issues or if you've lost a pregnancy, I just feel like there's this deeper message here of use that as an invitation to focus more on your health, your stresses, your lessons with your partner that might need to be worked through. It's all this catalyst for our deeper healing when that happens, and that you are more supported than you know, and that your spirit babies, they have this beautiful co-creation with you. Because I also feel like for this one in particular that I was connecting with, but with for so many, it isn't the first lifetime of these dances. I felt like this spirit baby had been her grandmother in a past life. There are so many beautiful forces at play, and I feel like we can sometimes beat ourselves up or only want things to look a certain way or feel like things are not a success if they don't go a certain way. And so this spirit baby's message is really saying everything is going to be okay. The purpose of this time period was for you to catch something in your health and your healing journey so that you can have the soul growth needed to be more ready for her to come back, and to trust that timing and to know it's all divinely orchestrated. And when she came in, she was with a younger boy in the spirit world, an older woman in the spirit world, and it feels like all of the family knows about the divine timing and they're all working together as well. So trust the timing, trust the timing, trust the timing. And I feel like if this message resonates with you, you would love episode 113 of Magic Hour with Emily, the spirit baby medium, where we go into the energetics of pregnancy loss and so much of that in a way deeper level. So those are the messages this week. I feel like we might be in this moment where there is a lot of noise in the collective and it's triggering our overthinking and our worry. And come back to those plants made of purple light. Come back to what seeds you can plant now, what fosters your creativity, and the beautiful garden of life that your heart is asking to be created here and now, that you don't need permission. You don't need to wait for anybody else. You don't need approval for anyone else. Create your dream life garden here and now. And I will see you next week.
For more information on Taylor and her work, go to angelsandamethyst.com or connect with her on Instagram at angels_and_amethyst. She is the one verified account with this name and will never DM you for a reading. If you have any questions about intuition, spirituality, angels, or anything and everything magical, please email contact@magichourpod.com. We will answer listener questions once a month in our solo episodes. Are you an aligned business owner that would like to advertise to our beautiful hummingbird community? Please email contact@magichourpod.com. Make sure you're subscribing to Magic Hour so you never miss the magic. And don't forget to leave us 5 sparkling star reviews. They help more magical people find the pod. Please screenshot and email your 5-star reviews to contact@magichourpod.com, and we'll send you a free downloadable angelic meditation and enter you to win an angel reading with Taylor Page. If you review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we'll add your name twice. And if you share the podcast on your Instagram story and tag us, we'll add your name a 3rd time. The next giveaway will happen when we hit 222 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Thank you for listening to Magic Hour with Taylor Page. Remember, you are magic.